And we're off and rolling. Welcome to the Assassin's Bakery Sports Podcast. I am your host, Joshua Goss, aka the Quiet Assassin. My co-host.
I am French Bread, aka French Shot Sibley, aka the voice of truth, reason, and sports.
Oh yeah, in a real way. And today we're just gonna introduce you to our sports podcast and let you know a little bit why we want to, pursue this endeavor and what we plan on giving to you, the audience. So
we hope to, bring you at least a little bit of knowledge, broaden your horizons on certain outlooks in the sports world and also in your local news and, just your life. We want to have an impact on your way of thinking and your train of thought when it comes to the world.
And sports is essential to the soul, and we love to have sports debates, talk about different controversial topics that are going on in the sports world, and we want to give our opinions to you, and we would like for you to do the same for us. So let's go ahead and jump into this podcast.
Oh, yes, indeed.
First off, we're going to talk about the purpose of this podcast. The purpose of the podcast, of course, is to enlighten everyone, all our viewers, about what's going on in not just the professional sports world, but sports from the high school level, the collegiate level, and the professional level, and perhaps the amateur level as well. So we just want to touch on all different sports at all different levels
and aspects. We also like to get those out there, who don't really have a chance to get out there. Give them not only the underdogs but the underprivileged and those who aren't able to put themselves in the limelight, or they don't have the publicity to show their talent or show that that they actually have an opinion, or they have a different perspective that needs to be heard. We, myself, and the Quiet Assassin, we want to give those a voice, the voice of the unheard, a chance to speak their mind, tell their truths and opinions.
Couldn't have said it better. We're going to go ahead and transition into our personal views and opinions on sports. Me, personally, I'm a basketball first guy. I love basketball. It's my first love. I love watching college basketball, NBA basketball, high school basketball, and I just love everything from the screen setting to rebounding to game-winning shots to fast break, slam dunks, alley-oops. It's all fascinating to me. And the same with football. Just love a big hit, love an interception, love a nice catch for it has it doesn't have to necessarily be a touchdown. It could be just for a first down. And the fast pace of the game is exciting too. It keep football and basketball. They keep me intrigued. My interest, that is, keep me wanting more. So
the wow factor of the game. I'm in the same boat. I'm a football first type of guy. I'm very diverse. I like the technicalities. I actually like the little minute details. I like the players' opinions. I like to I like to see when players are involved and how they reach their community, as well as they affect the gridiron. I love basketball. I've always been a big fan of basketball. Never really had a team or until recently, but I've always followed players. I've always liked to be involved all the way around the league. I like to see the same thing with football, the technical aspects. Like my partner said, screen setting, running the plays, motions. I'm also very into baseball. I like to Hopefully, we get into talking about, baseball, the pennant races. I know baseball is not an appealing sport right now, but if you take the time to understand the aspects and understand that it's a game, that anything can happen on any given play. So you have to be attentive, and you have to show that you have to be watching every little thing, every little mechanics, from the pitcher all the way to the left fielder, from the right fielder all the way down to the catcher. It's a technical game, and it's a mental game, and the mental aspect of all the sports is what intrigues me. I'm also into boxing, MMA. Oh yes, big MMA fan.
MMA fan. I have a relative who's trying to earn his stripes and work his way up the ranks in the MMA world, and it's a pretty grueling sport. It's physically demanding, but it's very beneficial, because you could apply what you learn in becoming an MMA fighter into everyday life, because you're protecting yourself and you're defending yourself, from those that pose a threat to you. So we're going to touch on all different sports, because sports is so broad. We can't just focus just on 2 or 3 sports. We have to touch every different sport, every topic, to keep our audience in suspense and wanting to come back and view our podcast. And eventually, once we build our following up, we will have the audience tweet us questions, email us questions, call in.
State your opinions. That's one thing we're big about. We're here for you guys, for those who feel like they don't have a voice within the sports world. For those who feel like they can, their words can make an influence or can change their opinions. I mean, not only just the technicality of the sports, but the financial portions, the moves that are made outside of the sports, acquiring players, acquiring new land to build stadiums, how the cities affect the sports teams and what they do. It's such, the economical side, it's so deep. It's such a sports, just in general, has a lot of depth, a lot of questions that need to be answered, a lot of points and aspects that need to be opened up and explained to the viewers.
Yeah, and then the piggyback off what French Bread was just talking about, also the team morale is very important in the direction of a team.
Agreed.
If all of the players really aren't on the same page, it's pretty difficult for the team to be successful. The team players, they don't have to necessarily like one another, but they do have to respect one another. And if you don't have that respect in that locker room, then the team is just going to be lost.
Exactly. Yeah. I could agree with you more. And if you're not playing for each other, what are you playing for?
Exactly.
I've seen myself come in contact with a lot of teams that
a lot of egos get in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't put their emotions and their feelings and the stats to the side for
the betterment of the team.
Yeah, the cause. The really not one person gets a W. The whole team gets the W, starting from the GM down. It's a team sport. Besides the MMA and the boxing, where you're out there by yourself. And you can only depend on yourself. So it's different. It varies. Sometimes you have to believe in the mental aspect, and you have to believe in yourself. The emotional side of sports is very deep within itself. A lot of players, especially I know within baseball, in my current research, is that if one player is down or if one player is out of it, it can affect the whole team and the way that the team is functioning. And it has a great effect on whether you get that big W or that terrible L.
Yeah, man, it could be pretty brutal. And the baseball season is winding down. I'm an A's fan. I don't necessarily watch all the games, but I'm rooting for them. I hope they make a good postseason run this year, and make it out of at least the first round.
Oh yeah,
for crying out loud.
Oh yeah, I mean they have to. They've been fairly well. They've been swinging. I mean they've been in a slump this past month. Due to they lost a big bat within the lineup, but they did add some depth to their bullpen and their pitching rotation. So I mean they have a fair shot, but they need to make it in there. I'm an A's fan as well. A's in Boston. I.
How ironic. So how do you feel about the Cespedes trade? Given that both of your teams that you like in professional baseball, completed a transaction.
I mean, I was happy at the same time because, I mean, John Lester and Ryan Gomes, which the two players were acquired by the A's. John Lester is, I mean, an ace, a hell of a pitcher. I mean, his record shows for it, but
exactly.
He just hasn't been able to, get the offensive firepower behind him. It's kind of like, in football, to kind of compare, you could put as many touchdowns on the boards, but if you're not stopping that team from, putting up points, you're not going to win the game. It's just going to be a shootout.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's kind of like that, but John Lester is putting up 8 good innings of pitching. Also, I mean, they acquired Jeff Samardzija, Jeff Hamill, Jeff Kazmir. Scott Kazmir, he's been pitching phenomenally this season. I mean, Sonny Gray, he's been a solid starter for him. I mean, they have a beautiful bullpen. They have a beautiful pitching situation. It's just losing Cespedes, lost a little bit of firepower, but not only firepower, the team morale. You have somebody with baseball. It's not like football where it's always consistent, like a different play. There's always different plays. There's always a shift in momentum. It's like when you're with those guys on that team, it's like, that's family. Like you're in that clubhouse together. You're sitting in that dugout and you get to know the next man next to you. So when, somebody who's influential like Cespedes, who was, as you know, the home run derby champ,
yes.
He was with that clubhouse he was with the team for about like a good 2 to 3 years, It's like losing a brother.
He built up a solid fan base, so when you see a beloved player at that, switch franchises, it takes a toll on the team and the fans as well. And best of luck to Cespedes and his future endeavors with the Boston Red Sox, but, you will be really missed.
Oh, yeah.
Hope to get you back someday.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I miss Cespedes myself. He was a big pop in the lineup. I feel like with the A's platoon method, he kind of gave a lot of those players a little bit of momentum, like a little. It was more like like again I reference in football. You have your battering ram. You have that running back that you wear that defense down with. And Cespedes was one of those hitters. Like it's either you're walking him, he's either getting walked, or you're getting slammed. You're getting a slam out the park. And
heavily relied upon, heavily.
And that's opening up opportunities for the hitters that are just coming back along and finding their groove now, like Brandon Moss and Josh Donaldson and Coco Crisp. I mean, a lot of players, a lot of the bats in their rotation, have taken a big slump because I feel like, Cespedes was that guy. He was the catalyst, the straw that stirs the drink.
Mm-hmm.
To take a quote from the Giants baseball manager Bruce Bochy, he said the same thing about Angel Pagan. There's a lot of baseball injuries, and when you lose a key piece, when you lose your leadoff hitter, you're losing the catalyst. You're losing your spark. That one person who can get on base and put somebody in a position to get an RBI.
Right. We're gonna go ahead and transition from professional league baseball. We're gonna focus on this Thursday's professional NFL game between the Washington Redskins and Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams the Eagles are coming off a win.
Oh, yes. They're coming off a 37-34 win over the Redskins. The Eagles this week, they have the Niners, which are kind of faltering. I mean, we can touch on that a little bit after we get into this Thursday night matchup. But the Eagles, the Redskins, they're a team that just had they just picked up They just picked up a brand new coach, Jay Gruden.
Oh yes, Jay Gruden. He's Robert Griffin III seems to really think highly of him, but then again, Robert Griffin III cannot seem to be healthy. I'm really high on this kid. I like all his attributes. I like his work ethic, but I do think he needs to learn how to play out of the pocket. He will prolong his career if he does that. I know he likes to use his athleticism to put the team in a better position to win, but he has to be thinking long term.
I agree with you there, but to kind of opposed to your statement, I don't feel like Robert Griffin III is really that much of a good quarterback in his own. I mean, again, like you said, like as you pointed out, he can't stay healthy. He seems to be frail. He doesn't really care about his body. He puts himself out there, and it doesn't seem like he cares too much about how it affects the team. But in return, I feel like Kirk Cousins is more of a better fit for the Redskins and their offense.
Because he's more of a conventional quarterback. He's more of a pocket passer, which is great. That's what you want, but you do kind of want a dual threat, like a Russell Wilson, for example, the Seattle Seahawks. He can use his legs to his advantage, and he can use his arm strength to his advantage. So.
But the difference between Russell Wilson and Robert Griffin III is Russell Wilson has the ability to be a conventional quarterback. I feel like Robert Griffin III relies heavily on his athletic ability.
Yes.
Heavily.
Couldn't agree more.
It is not necessary. I mean, the kid has a hell of an arm. I mean, his accuracy isn't completely gone. I mean, he can put the ball out there, but it just seems like his decision making and his quarterback actual IQ isn't there or worthy enough to sustain in the NFL. I mean, if he doesn't, I feel like he keys too much on the big play instead of making the correct play and going through his progressions. I mean, you can't go through your progressions and you can't see your receivers and you can't analyze defenses if you're always on the run, even when it's necessary. I mean, I do understand that, the past couple of years, the Redskins' offensive line hasn't been the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and that's an issue that they need to address, going into the future, especially since they believe that their future is in Robert Griffin III. We need to protect him so he can, be able to play every Sunday and make plays and win games for the team. So I think that's the issue they need to address. And as soon as they address it, and when Robert Griffin III, is back healthy again, who knows what direction this team will go in? Maybe positive, may not be a positive direction.
I mean that NFC East is wide open right now. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles are really the only threat right now. They're looking like a solid team. I mean, the Giants, they started out slow, they sputtered, but I mean, Eli Manning is a two-time Super Bowl champ who hasn't really regained that Super Bowl form. Again. Put a point on to what you were saying about, had the organization bringing in, the talent to protect Robert Griffin III. Robert Griffin III has to protect himself at the same time. What good is having a all-pro offensive line when, you're constantly putting yourself in harm's way on every play. But I mean, to kind of digress back to what we were originally talking about. I mean, the NFC East is wide open right now. I mean, last week, last Sunday, Eli Manning had a terrific game. I believe he threw for over 200 yards, had 2 touchdowns, both to Victor Cruz. He was saucing. Rashad Jennings, former Oakland Raider, he ran
great game on the ground.
Great game on the ground.
176 yards rushing
and a touchdown.
So.
I mean, I believe on 15 carries. I believe
limited amount of carries. Got the job done.
I mean, efficient. I mean, their offensive line they beat up on a very strong Houston Texans defense.
And you know what, French? In order to be successful in the National Football League, you need to have a balanced offense. You have to be able to run the ball. and you have to be able to pass the ball. You can do both effectively. You have a pretty good shot at making the playoffs and even making a deep postseason run.
Oh yes, I couldn't agree.
Host that the Lombardi Trophy come February.
Yes, that is that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I do believe I do stand behind that statement, sir. And it also comes down to play calling as well. I mean, and your system. I feel like kind of diving into the Giants. I feel like Eli Manning's struggles have come from one, changing offensive coordinator. He had the same. Kevin Gilbride was his offensive coordinator since the day he got drafted. Now they had that air it out type of pound it down your throat. We're gonna stretch the field with Victor Cruz, and when they had Hakeem Nicks. And that's one thing the Giants, I do have to applaud the Giants for. They draft amazing receivers. Their scouts, they draft amazing receivers, and they, for some reason, they come out with these great defensive end and defensive linemen. I really have to tip my cap to the Giants scouting staff and their talent evaluators. But now you're implementing a West Coast offense on a quarterback who isn't a West Coast quarterback. I mean, we all know
personnel is key. You got to have the proper personnel in order to run the right defense and the right offense. So.
And you have to fit. I mean, I also believe this is something that the current Oakland Raiders coordinator has said. You make your scheme fit your players. You don't make your players fit your scheme. And I just feel like Eli. I mean, we all know who one of the greatest West Coast quarterbacks were. I mean, it burns me to say it, but Jeff Garcia. He was the, if not the best West Coast quarterback. I mean, he took that West Coast offensive scheme and made it his own and was successful. But you compare Jeff Garcia to Eli Manning, and there's no comparison at all.
No hardware to show for it. But he did win a lot of games as a San Francisco 49er. But I mean, who wants to hear about how many games you won in your NFL career?
It's all about
based on how many Super Bowl rings did you get
and your appearances.
Yeah, exactly.
Your appearances. I mean, you can't build up a solid argument against somebody who's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. And I mean, he has that pedigree. I mean, his big brother Peyton. I mean, Archie Manning.
His father, yeah.
I mean, man. It's in his lineage.
Exactly.
I mean, he can't. I mean, you can't get more football knowledge or the understanding of the game like that. I mean, that's damn near a century of football. Since the beginning, from when they were just running the ball in leather helmets. I mean, that is the knowledge that's bestowed upon these quarterbacks. I feel like just generally in the league, there's not a lot of smart quarterbacks like that. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that have been groomed. That's why myself, I feel like, a rookie quarterback, in my opinion, should sit. Just like the Giants acquired Ryan Nesbitt.
From Syracuse, yes.
And I feel like, when Eli Manning's time is up, he's going to be possibly the next Aaron Rodgers. I mean, even better.
You heard it here, folks. From Sashman's Bakery, Ryan Nesbitt could possibly be the next Aaron Rodgers.
It's the truth. I mean,
he's Eli Manning's predecessor. So
it's just like get off topic a little bit. Peyton Manning has Brett Osweiler, who's been sitting behind him for I believe a year or two now. So he's going to be a nice addition. Also, to get in rookie quarterbacks who've been sitting, Ryan Mallett was sitting behind Tom Brady. Right. They just drafted Garoppolo from Illinois, or where did he go to? I forgot. I would have to look that up. But
Garoppolo. I'm not quite sure. I want to say he went to a D3 school in Iowa, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta do a little bit of research.
Don't quote us, folks. We were assuming that he went to a D3 school in Iowa, but I do know that it was not a Division I school. He did not let that deter him from obtaining his goal, and that was to reach the NFL. He made it, and he just has to sit back and learn, and he will get his turn in due time. And we're going to go ahead and transition into our next topic, which is the direction of our beloved Oakland Raiders.
Oh,
man. Where do we start?
I don't.
Sir, where do we start?
There's so many places to start. I mean, there's so many. There's so many needs. There's so many. There's so many voids. There's so many questions. I mean, there's not a lot that's cemented in the organization yet. I mean, just from the beginning of the Reggie McKenzie, Dennis Allen era, you know, God rest his soul, Al Davis was one of the most influential GMs / coaches / talent evaluators, you know, to...
But my only problem with the big great Al Davis is I felt like he wanted to have totalitarian control over his team. He didn't allow his coaching staff to implement the systems that they wanted to implement to benefit the team. And that was kind of like a detriment to the team. The team didn't always respond well because he always wanted to have the final say-so on how things, you know, transpired and why they transpired the way they did.
But I mean, a lot of that had to deal with, you know, around the era when they were around that first Super Bowl.
Correct.
Al Davis was not only an owner, but he was a coach before they hired the first Hispanic coach in Tom Flores. So Al Davis understood the X's and O's. I feel like, you know, I completely agree with your statement about the totalitarian, you know, grip upon the team. But at the same time, you know, he knew football. He knew what he wanted and how he wanted. I just felt like in his latter years, the talent kind of outgrew him, like outgrew his era. It kind of got to where the point where he was stuck in the era of the late Raiders when, you know, things were blossoming and growing into the league we have now. I mean, you look at a lot of the drafts that we had, you know, Al Davis is known for what?
Speed. Players based upon speed and
size.
They lack the talent. Speed and size and lack talent. And you can't necessarily go for the fastest player. You have to go with the player who has the best skill set. He may not be the fastest player. He may not be the biggest player. He may not be the strongest player. But his overall game fits the team's needs.
Yeah,
I mean, that's very important.
To concur about that, I feel like the league had a kind of a grudge with Al Davis. You know, a little bit of the history of Al Davis. You know, he not to say he stole the Raiders, but he swooped in, you know, at an opportune time. You know, the actual original owner of the Raiders went out of the country, and he had left the team to Al Davis, and Al Davis basically took it upon himself to, you know, decide the direction, and I mean, he ended up winning 3 Super Bowls.
Yes, the Super Bowls are something that we'll always be thankful for. We're just trying to figure out the current direction of the Raiders because we were starting out 0-3. The game last week against the Patriots, I feel like that was a call that shouldn't have been called because there's holding. In my opinion, there's holding on every NFL play. It just doesn't get noticed. The McFadden touchdown should have stood, and we would have went for the 2-point conversion and could have won the game in overtime. But I think it starts with cohesion. We have to, you know, everyone has to be playing at the same time. We have Maurice Jones-Drew. He's out. He's not getting carries because he's not on the active roster. Darren McFadden's slowly, you know, starting to come into form.
Find his rhythm.
Derek Carr, I like his poise, man. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He's not afraid to call out teammates when he feels like they're not in an appropriate position. I like that. He's taking that leadership role on in an early stage of his career. Couldn't ask for anything more. But we just need some consistency on that offensive side of the ball. The receiving core has to learn how to hold on to the ball.
Has to.
You can't let the ball hit your hands, and a defender is lurking. Of course, he's going to intercept the ball.
I mean, you can't be afraid. I remember one of my late coaches. He used to tell me, you know, you're playing for the guy next to you. You know, you're playing for your brothers, and you make that catch knowing that, you know what, even if you do get hurt, you're showing that, you know what, I'm willing to give my body up. I'm willing to lay everything on the line for my brothers. You know, it's a family. You know, if one piece doesn't fit within the family, or if you have one black sheep who doesn't want to grasp the concept or doesn't want to be within the team and the family concept, then you're going to have a chink in your chain.
Yeah, very dysfunctional team.
And I mean, and, you know, to kind of say along with the consistency, I mean, just to bring up, you know, a little stat, you know, the offensive line has been great in pass protection. They've out of the 3 weeks, you know, Derek Carr's only been sacked twice. They've kept him up on his feet. His jersey's been clean. They've consistently opened up a beautiful pocket, gave him time, giving him the lanes to throw in. I mean, and he really hasn't you know, been under duress a lot. I feel like, to me, Derek Carr is part of, you know, the discussion, that the topic that we're having, the direction for the Raiders. I feel like in that offense that he is the direction. He is that leader, that fiery quarterback that we need. That quarterback that's going to force you to be accountable. That's going to force you to work harder because he's working his hardest and he wants to get to dominance. He is a dominant quarterback. I mean, you can tell from his pedigree. I mean, Fresno State. I mean, he broke how many records? They were undefeated through what? I want to say 10+ games through his senior collegiate season, and then you also look at, you know, he's seen the failure part of it. He grew up with it, watching his brother. David Carr, who was unfortunately thrown to the Wolves in an expansion, you know, Houston Texans team. I mean, they had no offensive line, they had no receivers. I mean, he was getting hit. He was hearing footsteps and seeing ghosts. I mean, and Derek grew up around that. Derek seen that, you know what, you need to be tough. Not only physically tough, but mentally tough. Things are going to go your way. You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to mess up. Every play isn't going to work for you.
Called growing pains. You're going to have to go through them now, and you just have to learn from them.
And that's why I feel like this season, you know, even if the Raiders do go 0-16, I feel like this season isn't lost because you're peppering, you're preparing him for the future. You know, you're getting him acclimated to the nuances in the NFL. You're showing him, you know, the different defenses. I mean, if you look at the first 3 weeks, he's gone up against some pretty tough defenses, coaching and physically. I mean, the Jets, you know, Rex Ryan will make a mincemeat out of a veteran quarterback. I mean, his schemes have been proven. He's highly regarded in the NFL as a defensive coach. The Houston Texans, I mean, yes, they were without, you know, first pick of the draft, Davian Clowney. But, I mean, they still have J.J. Watt, who's a big disruption. I mean, if you look at week one, he ruined that Redskins game single-handedly.
He's a hog. He's a load to deal with on the defensive side of the ball. And as far as the consistency part for the Raiders, for me, is I feel like we need to implement some better running plays. Maybe some more plays that involve a lead blocker, because Darren McFadden had 16 carries this past week for roughly 60 yards. It's not a lot of production. You don't have any other running back to go to because Maurice Jones-Drew is not playing.
But they do, like, that's, I mean, I can concur to that statement because they do have a young back in Latavius Murray, which is, I mean, he showed in the preseason that he's a hard-nosed, inside the gap, inside the tackles runner. And that's what I felt like, you know, this week where, you know, offensive coordinator Greg Olsen kind of, you know, screwed the pooch. Because Darren McFadden is a slasher. He's an outside runner. He ran that 4.3 40 in the combine. You know, he's known for his speed. He's known for busting the home run play on the outside. You know, play to your strengths. You say that, you know, you make your scheme fit your players, but Darren McFadden has shown that, you know, he's not a
power back.
He's not a pound the middle. You have Latavius Murray, who's 6'3", 225.
But he has limited experience at the running back level, at the NFL level.
But I mean, how are you supposed to get experience and, you know, you don't get thrown in there? I mean, he get into the game. I mean, it was it was third and 2, and you've been running Jerry McFadden all game, and you want to bring Latavius Murray in for a 2-yard run out of nowhere. You're not even developing a rhythm, not even letting the offensive line, get acclimated to his running style and how he ran. I mean, it was just that right there. I mean, to me, as being a former football player myself, and working around the offensive line, you have those big guys up front. The running backs have to know them. You have to know where your power guy is, and who likes to kick out blocking, who's down blocking, and who can take their man, who's that big mauler who is going to drive that man off that ball 2 to 3 yards, creating that seam for you. If you don't have a full back in front of you, and in running the man power scheme, that's a big factor in it.
Right. And me personally, I think we need to go out and sign Ray Rice. We need another power running back to go along with Maurice Jones-Drew once he gets healthy again. I think the offense will move quicker downfield. The receivers, they'll gain consistency. They'll get acclimated to the way Carr throws the ball. It's still early in the season. We may not make the playoffs again this year. I understand that because we have a rookie quarterback. It's going to take time for him to play at the professional level. He's doing an excellent job right now. I couldn't ask for him to play any better. We just need to get some more consistency. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is moral victories. Do they exist? What's your opinion on that?
My opinion, I feel like moral victories, they don't exist. Moral victories only exist in our realm, being fans and spectators and observers, those who actually are analytical of the game, more like I'm a heavy sports talk listener, to reference one of my heavy influences, Damon Bruce. He said that, this season, it's not time to, hit the panic button and throw the season out the window, because now we're starting a rookie quarterback. We brought in a lot of moving parts. We brought in over 10 free agents that hadn't been in our system or known our system or even gelled cohesively with our team. So we have to look for the incremental victories and the incremental steps, the steps towards being relevant, the steps towards consistency.
Right.
And I felt like in that New England game, there was plenty of steps, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, that front four, if you look at the Raiders' defensive scheme from week 1 to week 3, they haven't been dialing up the blitzes like they did last season, because you've brought in the pieces in that front four to sustain a solid pass rush. You can't that right there, coming out with 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hurries. I mean, they had Tom Brady looking like he did in that Super Bowl versus the Giants. He didn't. Everybody knows Tom Brady doesn't like to get hit. Tom Brady doesn't like to be shook, and that's what they did. They hurried him up. They made him run. They made him throw that ball. That is a small incremental victory. I mean, even though we were without C.O. Moore and Nick Roach, and we lost Tyvon Branch in the secondary, there's still a strong play with on the defensive side of the ball from the secondary on down to the front. I mean, it's a small incremental victory. I mean, I feel like I'm a diehard Raiders fan, whether it's win or lose or draw.
You can't be a fair weather fan, man. It's been a decade plus since the Raiders have made the playoffs. Some of you may not know that, but it's been quite some time. Like my co-host said, you have to take baby steps. Set a small goal. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6 wins this year. I would prefer us to win more, but you have to be realistic at the end of the day. And yes, and I have to agree. I don't really believe in moral victories. I believe in, if you lose a game, whether it's by a lot or if it's a close game, learn something from that win or that loss and apply it to games in the future so you don't make those same mistakes. And once you get in the habit of analyzing your game and figuring out ways to improve your game, you always play good. You know,
Exactly.
you may have a few bad plays here and there, but overall, your gameplay will be solid.
If you're not, and this is this is coming from this is a quote from the current coaching staff in place with the Raiders. Get better week by week. Don't be a repeat mistake offender. Don't make those same mistakes every week. If you're losing, you're losing because of something that you hadn't seen, or not. Don't let it be a mental error. And if it's a mental error, again, referencing one of my favorite sports talk radio hosts and personalities, Damon Bruce. If you make a mental mistake, make it at 100 miles per hour. I mean, don't make a mental mistake, being lazy or feeding into, your physical status at that point, whether you're tired or you're trying to keep up with your team. Make it 100 miles per hour, as long as you're putting all that effort into it, and you're not thinking and you're playing. A mistake is a mistake. It can be it can be fixed the next play. Like a lot of the mainstream analysts and hosts say, the game is mental.
Oh yes, without a doubt. We're gonna go ahead and segue into our sports background. I played a lot of AAU basketball growing up, from the ages of 12 to about 15 years of age. I delved into varsity football my senior year. I didn't really receive a ton of playing time, but my main background is academics. I maintained a 3.2 grade point average. I got into San Jose State University. Graduated, not the ideal 4-year plan, but the 5-year plan. Got my BA in African American Studies, and I'm trying to find my way in society. And I really love sports, and I teamed up with my good friend, French Bread over here, and we decided one day, let's start our own sports podcast. We have some pretty good ideas, and we have some pretty good opinions and debates and views on sports. So let's go ahead and present, our view and our opinions on sports to the world. So,
I mean, a lot of, kind of tying into what you're saying, in your background, a lot of young players these days don't really see and value how much that education and that knowledge, helps in transitions on the field and off the field. I mean, myself, I've been playing sports since I was 6 years old. I started out playing Pop Warner football. My first sport was actually baseball. I played traveling baseball. I played for the Hayward Devil Rays. I was a catcher, left fielder. I ultimately transitioned into playing football. I played for multiple, Pop Warner teams. I played high school football. I played collegiate football. I'm currently playing semi-pro, and I've played arena. I've also delved into playing basketball. I played AAU basketball. I was actually a high school wrestler. Made it to state. Wrestling 215 weight class. It's the mental aspect and the educational aspect rarely get touched on. There's not a lot of people stressing, how much, your habits within the classroom transition to your habits on the field. If you're not paying attention in class and you're lackadaisical in class, and you don't apply yourself, you're not going to apply yourself to your playbooks, your technicalities,
right.
That detail.
Right.
And because firsthand, when I first started playing, I didn't think that going to school and learning had anything to do or directly affected with my play on the field, and it did. When I got into high school, film study, diving into that playbook like it's your homework or a textbook. Those habits transition to off the field back onto the field, and I feel like a lot of these young players these days, they feel like they can skate by with just their athletic ability when, the sports world is not guaranteed.
Suppose you suffer a career-ending injury. What are you going to fall back on? If you have a solid, firm educational background, the possibilities are endless for you. So, education is the key to success. Remember that.
Always, always. Even you can have all the talent in the world, all the physical ability, but if you're not using your mind and you're not thinking and you're not applying good habits to your craft, then you're not going to go anywhere and your longevity is limited.
All right, folks. Until next time, I am JG the Quiet Assassin.
French bread.
We are signing out.